love for me.
What is it that you don't know? So I can tell you that at least. Or what can I tell you about?
Actually, is like one of you met Amit from Talent, or not? Not one of you.
No, I don't think so.
No, you did not? Okay. I thought you met him. No, actually, it's all possibility when you want to hire someone and how to find the best way to hire the talent from everywhere regarding localization of the candidate, because and the time. Hello, Jackie. Hello, Kyle. Regarding the localization of each talent, who seems to be a mess, actually.
Tell me more. Like, what is the mess that you experience?
I did not experience it like personally, but as we have a lot of clients who are like, okay, if I'm hiring someone for this country, what should I do? What is the best way? And, it's always should I do freelancing? Should I do perm contract? What is the best regarding the localization of the candidate? Should I create an entity? Maybe if I have 10 employees who are living in this country, maybe I should create my own entity. Where should I use all the type of contracts? So actually, it's all about you guys. I think what you're doing, and I think
yes,
this is great.
Yeah, I can answer all those questions. So starting off, if someone works full-time for you, they should be an employee. Like, you don't have a choice in the matter, really. Like, if someone is working from a particular country, they work full-time there, you are their only employer, they have to receive like a proper local employment agreement. And the interesting thing is the reasons for this are different on a country-by-country basis. It's always about misclassification and making sure someone gets the proper benefits and the proper protections. The actual like impact of not doing it is different for each country in the world. But in all cases, you have to do that. And so what we do is we recommend against anybody working as a contractor unless they are specifically a contractor, unless they can actually invoice if they have multiple clients, if their work is temporary or like short-lived, like the contract is not a permanent kind of contract. Only in those cases does it make sense to work with a contractor. In all other cases, you have no choice, and so you have to set up your own either set up your own local entity or work with us to be able to solve for those kind of things. And then following that, once at what point do you decide to actually set up your own entity? This varies a lot on a country-by-country basis, and it varies a lot about how you set up your team. So if you find that your team consists of 10 different people in 10 different countries, you're not going to set up entities in all of those countries. That is a massive overhead. It takes a really long time to do. It's really expensive to do so. And there's really no reason to do so. What we advise our customers is only if you reach, or if you plan to hire specifically 50 or 100 people in a single country, only then does it make sense. And in that situation, you're probably not working remotely, because it's unlikely that if you're going to hire, for instance, in a particular time zone, or if you're going to hire just anywhere in the world, that everybody's going to end up living in the same country, unless your company is literally the size of Amazon. So yeah, I think that does answer some of the questions that you posed, Margot. I can walk through some other stuff that I prepared that I thought about, if it's interesting. I see some more people have joined. Let's see, what else did I have? I have slides. So one thing, I don't know how you think about this, Margot, about global compensation. This is like a super hot topic that everybody loves to talk about and how to solve for. Do you have a solution for this, Margot? Is there something that you do today, or thoughts that you have about, how to balance compensation for people around the world?
We are not doing it yet, as we are not full remote yet at Talent.io, but actually I know that a lot of our clients are expecting information about that and how they can pay their client. And actually, one thing with so we have recruiter who are taking care of candidates, and when they need to define a remote salary, because all candidates, they have like a salary on our platform, it's getting really hard to define a remote salary, as is not really existing yet. But we want to give an idea to our client. So it's always hard to get the good compensation.
Yeah, it's really complicated. So I think what the best way to do this as an employer, if you have the choice to make this, is to set a policy, be upfront about it, and then stick to that policy. And that policy can be whatever. It could be I pay local rate, period. So if someone lives in in an area where market rate for a particular position is very low, I just follow that salary. If it's somewhere very high, I pay that salary. You can do that. The downside of that is, of course, that you have massive income disparities across your organization, meaning that people living in San Francisco will earn 10 times more than people living, for instance, where I live in Portugal. What I've been advising organizations to do is to set a global floor, so a minimum. So everybody in the organization at least gets paid a certain amount. And then how far you go above that, that is up to you. It's depending on your organization and what you can really sustain. But you basically say, well, everybody in the organization will earn at least $40,000 or $50,000 on a yearly basis, and then you just translate it into local currency and whatever else you need to do locally to be able to meet the requirements there. If you do this, you create like a good level for many people. You make it so that everybody that works for you earns at least a good wage that they can sustain themselves with, rather than something that rather than paying someone almost nothing just because they live in a low-cost area. And then going beyond this, it just depends on what you can sustain as an organization. So, for example, if you say, well, that global floor, we can do that, but we can't pay like the top of the market rate, or we can't pay San Francisco rate. You can just elect to not hire people from there, from higher cost regions, and it sort of solves it quite well already. And so that's definitely an advice I've been giving a lot to other people. I see a few more people have joined. Jackie, Mandia, and Dorian. I would love it if you have any specific things you want to hear, or if you have any specific questions you want answered, because I'm happy to help out in any way. One of the things that we see a lot is the struggles with providing benefits. And so if you hire someone in another country, you have to provide them benefits if they have a local employment agreement. And so that means statutory benefits, which are different in every country in the world. In UK, for example, you have to give someone a pension, whereas in other countries, that might be something completely different. In some countries, it might be healthcare benefits. In others, it might be particular payments that you have to make. And again, what we recommend here is you follow first what is required locally, and then beyond that, you try to standardize across the world, in particular through, for example, having lenient expense policies. So rather than saying, oh, we're going to offer a particular thing in a particular country, you can just say, well, it's easier if you just allow people to expand upwards of a certain amount on certain things. And that helps equalize a lot across different teams. Moving forward a little bit, and again, please let me know if you have any specific questions. Dorian has a question. Getting a freelance status might take time. What is the best way to manage the transition when you want to hire people that don't have a freelance status yet? Well, Well, it's what we solve for, right? So rather than hiring freelancers, you can just employ them directly through us, and then offer them proper employment, so you don't have to wait for such a status. And it doesn't always have to be long term, right? You can literally just employ someone for a number of months. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. Previously, this was very, very difficult, but yeah, with us, it's actually pretty simple. And then they just get a local payslip, pay local taxes for it, and meet local requirements for that. And there's no requirements for either the employer or the employee to do that. So that's the benefit of working with an employer of record like us, like remote. I hope that answers your question, Dorian. There's some other challenges that come up a lot, and people have a lot of questions about. One that I personally didn't expect to experience this much is visas and immigration. So what we see a lot is that people struggle, or you hire someone and you assume that they can work from wherever they are living today. In practice, what we find is that we have to check every single person, whether they have a work permit, whether they have a visa to work in the place that they want to live. And the reality of this is that it's an unsolved thing. Like, there's no beautiful streamlined way of doing it. So we help organizations with this, and we have many partners that help with this as well. But it's essentially fully up to governments to allow or disallow particular people to work from particular locations. And so if you're starting to employ people around the world, it is worthwhile to make sure that if you make an offer to someone, that they are actually allowed to work from the place that they are now, or that they're planning to work from, which is not at all a given. Dorian has another question. How do you manage the HR aspect with remote? For example, when an employee is an accident or wants to change health insurance. So that depends on each country in the world, right? So if we, as an employer, for you, for example, offer health benefits, then they will have direct access to that information. So, and I get if they have an accident. So in all cases, what we have to do is we have to follow local laws. So if the local law states that you, for example, someone has an accident, is unable to work, right? They have to be out for work for several days or maybe even weeks. All countries have policies around how you should continue to pay those people and how that works. And so what we do is we advise, inform, and make sure everybody's compliant with the law. So let's say you employ someone through us, they have an accident, they're not able to work for several months. We'll let you know immediately or in advance what the policies are locally. For example, you might have to continue paying them, but only a percentage. And then we'll actually make sure those payments get processed and everything follows as the local law requires it. Changing health insurance. So what we see is that this is mostly only for US employees. Most others tend to use their own health insurance. We actually work in a way that we can allow employees to freely change their own health insurance. For all the other places in the world, if we offer it, or if you want to offer it, that's usually not a problem. It's much easier in the rest of the world than it is in the United States. But Dorian, if you have further questions, I'd love to hear it. Jackie, what would your recommendation be for a small startup that's just starting out on hiring and want to build out a long-term team? Should we only focus on local, given the complexities of hiring full-time people abroad or needing to set up an entity, or should we at least open up the freelancer board? Are there other alternatives? Yeah, the alternative is working with us. So we solve this issue. So if you want to employ someone in another country, we just solve that. So you can hire someone, we take care of all the compliance, local labor law stuff, we do payroll, benefits, everything that comes with that. And so you don't actually have to take care of any of this yourself. My recommendation would be that everybody that you hire, especially for long term, you hire from day one as an employee if possible. So there might be reasons that it's not possible. Either the person is not a formal employee, they might do other jobs at the same time, or there's some other reason, depending on the country that they are or their personal situation, that they're not able to do so. But if possible, just hire them directly. If you work with remote or other employers of record, you don't need to have your own local entity, and you can just hire people directly through the employer of record. And there's no risk for you. You're fully compliant. The only thing is that it costs money, of course, as it always costs money to employ people abroad. Generally, I think, if you start out the business and you're still very small, my only recommendation around this would be to constrain the time zones that you're in. So if you find that you make a hire and they are many hours away in terms of time zone, they might feel lonely and it might be harder to work together with them. But other than that, like, there's really nothing stopping you nowadays from just hiring the best person you find rather than just looking locally. It will be harder to find someone locally. And by building a global team, you set yourself up for building a strong distributed team rather than one that is just local or limited to local. I hope that answered your question, Becky. I'll go over some other challenges that are. I mentioned the main one, which is time zone. That is basically unsolved, right? The only way, by the way, if you see my mouse, this is a fancy thing that I turned on by accident. The only thing I can recommend about this is to structure your remote team in a particular way. So to think about, as I said, the first people you should hire outside of the team that you already have in place, they should be within reasonable hours in terms of time zone. So for example, plus minus 3 or 4 hours, not much more than that. And then over time, you can start expanding them so that you have always, there's always someone awake and always someone working when you are working. And that is really what you want for everybody in the organization. So no one feels really lonely. Anis asks, at remote, can you literally hire from all over the world? No, unfortunately not. So we actually have to set up the entities ourselves and do all that work. So we can help, hiring contractors all over the world, but actually employing people fully, we can't yet. We're working on it. We're now in about 30 different countries. By the end of next year, about 80 or so. But we are limited by what local law and for what local governments allow us to do, whether they allow us to expand there, whether it's easy or not. And any limits related to that. So yeah, unfortunately, not everywhere in the world, but most places where we see like active demand for it, we can probably help with either today or quite soon. That's a great question. And so you have to imagine that for us to be able to do what we're doing today, we actually have to go through the pain that we try to avoid others having, which is setting up in every country, maintaining that entity, making sure we understand local labor laws, local payroll, and everything that comes with that, which is a lot, but it's literally our job. So we're happy to do it. Another thing that we get asked often about is stock options. So stock options are unsolved around the world. So the problem with stock options is not the issuing. So if you want to give stock options to someone, you generally can do that quite easily. It's just a matter of issuing them to them, sending them a stock options offer, and then particularly an NSO. The real problem here is with taxation. So stock options, they are considered different in each country of the world, unfortunately, and therefore they are taxed differently. In many countries, they are taxed before they actually produced any kind of value for the owners of the stock option, right? So the idea, of course, being that you get a stock option, and if there's an exit event as a company, you can sell those options, or you can convert them to shares, and you can sell those shares. Now, many countries in the world, they only think about stock options in the sense of the public market, where you have immediate value and you can immediately trade them, and therefore they are often already taxed. And they don't really differentiate between startup stock options and larger organizations which might have restricted stock units or something similar. The good news is that companies like ours, they can help you, advise you, and protect you in certain ways. The bad news is that we can't really solve taxes for you. So if you issue stock options to, for example, someone in Belgium or even someone in the Netherlands, they have to be aware of the fact that they will probably be taxed over those. And there's ways to work around it, but yeah, that's essentially what you're going to run into. I would love to hear if there's any other questions. I think I ran through most of my slides that I had prepared. If not, we can do something else. I don't know. I can appear as a hologram from Star Wars.
I mean, if we've hit people's questions and everybody feels good, I mean, we're gonna have a quick little wrap up back on the main stage. People can head there. Job, you can go sit in your nice chair, look out the window. but
I can look at the world coming by like this, and
how many people on your team do you have? Backgrounds?
We have now more than we have more than 60 people now internally, but to manage all of this, it's just me and my mouse. We have houses, living and offices, and all of Venice here. So.
On a good day, I see.
Still above the water. All right, thank you, everybody.
But no, thank you very much.
If you have any questions, feel free to email me or ping me on Twitter. Thanks so much. Thanks,
everybody, for coming out.